thank you very much for coming over for this rainy day or not bright day. So we are going to present Jennifer Primosch and what is her name?
Well, we're both Jennifer. We're Jen Squared. Together we're Jen Squared.
Okay, the Middle Eastern dance performance. And then the next one is Joel Simpson, who just arrived. He's going to present slide presentations of archaeological formations in Ireland. And Orin Buck, he is shooting video today. He was the one who went to Arizona as well as Utah and to take wonderful videos of, again, geological formations such as Bryce Canyon. You will enjoy this event tremendously. So thank you very much, and I'd like to introduce Jennifer Primosch and another Jennifer. Okay.
Hi everybody. So we are Jen Squared together, and I'm Primosch and Galliano, but we, as Oriental dancers, Oriental dance meaning anything that goes from Mediterranean through North Africa as far as Asia. Anything west of traditional Europe is Oriental dance. It's known by its somewhat lascivious name of belly dancing, which we'll use because then people understand what we're talking about, but it conjures up ideas that, that are incorrect. For example, that the belly dance was done to please the Sultan, and that's not the case. It's just folk dancing from the whole part of the Middle East and its far-ranging areas. So we actually have names that we dance under. This is Jennifer Juniper, and I am Jennifer Hanaya. So, but we're still Jen Squared together. We're going to be presenting different dances, one after the other. Because Yuko was telling me that this is a travel presentation, I had traveled through the Middle East in 2015, where I started off in Egypt, went through Jordan, and ended up in Israel. So in Egypt, I'd already been learning, we'd been dancing together, I'd already learned Oriental dance, but there was this one night in Sinai, Egypt. Sinai is way in the desert. It's also known for where Bedouin people live. The Bedouin people are the nomads of the Middle East, and possibly the oldest society that exists among humans are the Bedouin people. They're very, very honest, true, good people, and hospitality is a big issue. Family, tribe. It's really beautiful. Now what I'm presenting is as an American, New Yorker, having traveled to Egypt. I am not going to pretend that I am showing you anything authentic about Egypt. It's my experience going to Egypt and then into Jordan. So the first performance the first dance I'm presenting to you is to an older Egyptian song and a short, because these Egyptian songs, they can go for an hour. A short version of a song, and I'm going to be using a sword. So in Bedouin culture, swords are very important. Everybody has one. And sword dance is something that's commonly done for really any chance to have a party, which is all the time. So the birth of a child, naming ceremony for a boy or a girl. People will get their swords out and start dancing with the swords. So I'll be presenting that. And I'm dressed in a galabaya. This is the type of dress that you're going to find in Egypt among all different types of women. And I got this in Sinai. I'm also going to be wearing a face veil called a burqa. This is not a niqab. A niqab is a face veil worn for religious reasons. A burqa, a Bedouin burqa, is specifically a celebratory garment. It's like dressing up your face. So it's not any sort of religious thing. Bedouins are all different branches of the Abrahamic religions. So you're going to find Christian Bedouins, you're going to find Muslim Bedouins. It is accepted in the Middle East, from what I was told, that Abraham, who was the starter of the Abrahamic religions, was a Bedouin. And it is understood in the Middle East that that's where Judaism, Christianity, and Islam started with the Bedouins. So that's what I'll be wearing in a moment. Jen Juniper will then present a fan veil, so which is from China, right? Fan veil? Do you want to say anything about it? Okay. Jen has traveled through China. What Jen Juniper is presenting is what happened when Oriental dance came to the US and we ended up with a fusion. So I'm presenting my experience from Egypt. She's presenting what happened after Oriental dance came into the US, took on other things, and became awesome. And a whole other.
So fusion just means it combines belly dance with a lot of different styles of dance, and it comes from mixing belly dance from the Middle East with flamenco from Spain, and also a classical Indian dance. So yeah, so it's a combination of those three dances. So you'll see elements of all those three dances in the pieces that I do.
We're going to travel to India at some point soon.
Yes.
Okay. And with that, we're going to present our dances. cut the music. So, those are our dances, and we'd love to take some questions. If you have questions really about any of the things you saw, or the music, or the presentation of it, or anything like that.
What countries are these from?
So I presented specifically from Egypt. The first song, Ntramri, is, I'm saying it wrong, is an older song, often performed by a singer named Kulthum. She was known as the Voice of Egypt. But if you listen to Kulthum's version, it's like 55 minutes long, and it's amazing. I performed to a 5-minute version of that. The second song I did is a modern song. It's like a shabi, which is pop music, popular street music from Cairo. And it was from a movie recently, but that would be for anybody in Egypt to enjoy. I actually heard that in Egypt, which is why I chose that song. And your name's that?
The first music I danced to is a band called Beirut, and the song is called Ederlazi. And I should know where it's from, but I can't think of it right now. And the second song is a band from the US. They're called Beats Antique, quite popular tribal fusion band that people always dance tribal fusion to. And the name of the song was Beauty Beats. And tribal fusion is a mix, like I said, of some Odissi, so you saw that in there, and flamenco with the floreos, and also hip hop. So a lot of that.
There's a huge cultural exchange between all the way from India right up through Spain, which is where we pick up the Odissi dance and the flamenco arms, and then, you know, isn't America great? America's wonderful. We come here and we just mush everything together and make something fantastic. And Jen presented the fusion part, which is a very uniquely American version of Oriental dance.
How far back does this tradition? Well, you were giving us dances from several traditions.
Yes.
Correct? Yes.
Yes.
You gave us more belly dance, closer to belly dancing.
I also was belly dancing. We were both belly
And
dancing.
that was your second piece.
What the first piece was also belly dance, the whole thing.
Okay. How far back does that go?
So there's a lot of debate about it.
Debate?
Debate, yes. Short answer, over 1,000 years.
No.
Longer answer is that some people will attribute it to the Rum people leaving India and going through Spain and influencing people with dance. Other folks think it's just, this is how people dance, and eventually, you know, you put enough ripples in the stream, they all meet each other. The word belly dance is it's a misnomer. It was applied to the Colombian exhibition of 1893. There was a Moroccan, I think it was a Moroccan, like they made up a Moroccan street scene, and there was a dancer named Little Egypt. Now, no one has been able to definitively figure out who Little Egypt was, but one thing is certain is that she was not Egyptian. She may have been Syrian, and then there were a lot of dancers claiming they were Little Egypt. And she presented something like what I was presenting, but it was so shocking to Westerners, to the French and to Americans, that they started calling it I can't pronounce it in French, the danse du ventre, the dance of the stomach, because they saw the hip movements actually stomach movements, and there are stomach movements. There are a lot of stomach movements, but it's mostly the hips, as you could see from what we both did. And they started to refer to it as belly dance. And then it became this thing where it's in the vaudeville halls and the burlesque houses, and it became known as something lascivious.
Known as what?
Lascivious.
Lascivious.
Versus, this is the dance that women do in the Middle East at home. Like, this is...
I once photographed an Egyptian wedding.
Oh, yeah.
And all the women were dancing in this style.
Yes.
What is it?
The men were probably dancing too, is my
We
guess.
teach each other, you know, we grow up doing this.
Yeah, that's normal. That's normal. And the men also dance. It's not well known here in the U.S. that men dance. You go to the Middle East, the men are dancing all over the place. In fact, the night in the Bedouin tent where I ended up getting dressed up in that burqa and the whole thing. I got renamed Tanaya, and I learned a lot of the moves I did in that second dance from my bus driver, Mr. Ezra. Mr. Ezra knocked back they drink a lot of tea in Egypt. So he knocked back the tea and yelled, "Up, everybody up." And he started dancing and he started teaching us all these moves. And then the other Bedouin dancers there was men. So I actually learned a lot of those moves from men. So the women teach each other and the men teach each other. And I wish in the US it was more accepted for men to dance.
In the second dance, you had a lot of moves that looked like you were telling a story. How much of that is choreographed? How much do you just...
There's a framework. So there's like more of a loose framework. I know that I'm going to do this move at this point and this move at this point. I don't speak Arabic. And Egyptian Arabic is very, very specific. It's a very different style of Arabic from the Levantine. They have a lot of their own indigenous Coptic words. So I had to, first when I had someone who spoke Arabic listen to it, and he gave me one translation, then I went to another guy who I know spoke really Egyptian Arabic, and there's so many subtleties that I hadn't gotten from the first translation. So it's a guy who is head over heels for this girl, she's gorgeous, and he has no, as the kids say, no chill. He just is trying to go, he's all over, he's trying to go out with her, and she's like, "Whoa, you need to give me space, calm down, be cool." Like essentially she's telling him, be cool. And he's proposing marriage, and I'm gonna take you to the movies, and we're gonna have this wonderful life together. And she's like, "I wanna be free. I can't really be, you're too much right now." So that was the story of the second song was.
So you can interpret the way you want, depending on the teacher.
Depending on the teacher, depending on you and your, how you're understanding the song, it's very important, and this is something that comes up in Oriental dance a lot, that you need to really know what the song's about, and you need to have some sort of cultural reference for what's an okay hand gesture to do, what's an okay, like, is this an appropriate song to interpret? For example, there's a song that my husband had gotten for me called Govinda that he was hoping I could do maybe a fusion thing to, but it's actually a liturgical song. It's a Hindu liturgical song. That would be inappropriate to dance to. Like, liturgical songs are inappropriate for dance. So, what about in fusion? Do you guys?
The same thing with Odissi. So you have the mudras, the hand gestures. So Odissi is classical Indian dance, and they have mudras, hand gestures. So if you're fusing it, we make sure to use the hand gestures that are just for dance, because some of the mudras are for storytelling and dances about telling stories about the gods and goddesses. So, yeah, when I fuse, I would stay away from those and just use the dance mudras.
The Eastern dance, mainly for women, they exaggerate hips. Is that something characteristic? Because it is characteristic. And that's why they use particularly very heavy women to exaggerate femininity.
Yes. So ideally, we'll just say belly dances, just so that everybody understands exactly. The hips are what you really want to emphasize. So my scarf goes at the widest part of my hips. I don't want to minimize it, I want to maximize it. And you'll see Greek and Turkish dancers particularly, they have really voluminous skirts, and they will take the skirt and stuff it into to make their hips look as big as possible, because that is the femininity. And when the men and the women do the same moves, but they have very different intentions behind them. So when the women do the moves, it's about femininity, it's about being feminine. So the hips are the feature, really. I mean, for the Middle Eastern dance, at least. So. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for having us, Yuko. Thanks for listening.
Jennifer, two Jennifers here. And Jennifer Primosch paintings are
Oh.
right there. And this event is related to the Salon show. Those three people plus Jennifer, they are the member of Salon Art. We had this 19th anniversary Salon show. So you can see her paintings coordinate her dancing as well as costumes.
I forgot to mention that actually, that I do specific poses that are in those paintings. I evoked a few of those poses in there. So, thanks, Yuka. I forgot.
What was your painting?
Those two, the two angels that look menacing, but they're not. They're your guardians.
And then you paint.
I painted those, yes, and they're based on.
Your words.
Oh yeah, they're based on North African women and the jewelry in that style. So there you go.
Thank you.